Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new podcast episode on small groups in a modern world. And I'm so blessed to have Pastor Jared today. It is an excitement and a blessing and a privilege. And I think we will really dig deeper in the importance of small groups, our personal experiences, how we had some historical movements that gives us an influence to carry on the great work of breaking down in small groups and with the heartbeat of multiplications. And I think Pastor Jared is going to help us. So, Pastor Jared, I'm so blessed to have you this morning here at the podcast. So, if you would just take time and introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Ankit. So grateful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
And yeah, my name is Jared. I'm a community pastor at a local church here in Calgary. Mm-hmm. And so I've been serving in this role for, I would say probably 8 years or so. But then also a big part of my story, which we might get into a little bit, yes, highly influenced personally by being part of small groups, mm-hmm, and by leading in small groups, wow, and just experiencing some real life change. So my passion comes from really personal experience. And so I want to help others, find that connection, find community, find their calling, yeah, within the context of small groups. Yes. So I'm so glad to be here and chatting about this today.
Yes. And I think it was the clip that I saw of yours, and it brought me so much conviction. And I could sense the weight of God in it when you were speaking. And that brought my attention that how much critical it is that we really talk on small groups, we emphasize on small groups, we put efforts in the small groups. And like you just mentioned about how you had an experience of being a part of small group, and that's how your Christian journey began. And I think that is awesome. So Pastor Jared, I would want to begin by asking you this very simple question, like, why do we need small group?
Yeah, I think with that, Ankit, there's a few different ways we can approach that question. I think the biggest, most fundamental, foundational way that we look at that question is when we look at the person of God himself. Mm. When we look at God, he himself is a community.
Yes.
Father, Son, and Spirit.
Wow.
He dwells in eternal community. So when he then in the book of Genesis creates humankind, and we read that he creates humans in his image, we naturally come about this need for community. It's not good for a man to be alone. We find right in the beginning of Genesis. So that's really the foundation of why we need small groups, is because we need community. And within that smaller group context, that's where we find that calling and that fulfillment of the calling of being discipled and also being on mission. So a lot of that is about those two things. And what you probably hear me say that, discipleship, yes, and mission. It's, yes, how we grow, and it's how we fulfill our calling in God. Yeah. And I'll just say this too, Ankit. I mean, when we talk about why small groups, when God became a man in the person of Jesus Christ,
yes,
what do we see him doing? I mean, he brought together a group of people, right? He brought together his own small group, if you will, right? A group of 12 guys. Within that 12, he had 3, Peter, James, and John.
Yes.
And beyond that 12, he had 72. So we just see him operating in these different levels of community. And, the last thing I'll say on this point of why small groups is, even if we just look at human beings from almost a more scientific or sociological perspective, there's lots of books and things being written about the different spaces that people dwell in. Yeah. And so we talk about the public space. That's like the 100+ gathering. So that's like the worship service on the weekend is public space. Then we have social spaces, which are like that 30 to 50 range.
Yes.
Then we have personal space, and that's the 8 to 15. So that's like the small group space right there, right? Small group, life group, cell group. At the place I serve, we call it community group.
Yeah.
But then within that personal space is intimate space. And that's where we have that 3 to 5 person. So from being created in the image of God all the way down to who we are as humans.
Yes.
The question is, like, are we operating in these different spaces of community?
Wow.
Particularly that personal space.
Yes. Yeah. That's so good and deep. And I would really count on how you began by sharing about God as him being in triune nature, and that he is love. And then the emphasis on the disciples, and even John, I think in his epistles, he would call, like, we have seen him, we have heard him, and now we proclaim this message to you, that have fellowship with God and with one another. So I think the invite is there. It's not a command. If you do your Greek translation, it's not a command that John is giving. It's probably an invite that he's bringing us into. That since we are made in the image of God, like you said, the triune God who is love, and is calling us into the same fellowship, and now he has made us in his image. So he wants us to have that same thing going on in our lives. And I think this is how John would be able to emphasize. And I think even his personal experiences of God, he said Christ dwelt among us, he lived with Jesus, and then even probably he heard God when Peter and James and John would offer, when Peter would offer 3 altars at the Transfiguration episode. So I think he really had an understanding of triune God. And I think even in the first epistles of John, he would mention about the triune God. So I think you really hit well by giving us the very right foundation that we serve a triune God, and the God is love, and he invites each one of us to experience that love, and from there we can even build on our lives that is full of love for other people. Yeah.
And I'd say too, Ankit, just to build on that, the relevance for our modern age is huge.
Yeah.
Because especially in the West, we have really a pandemic of loneliness because the individual has been emphasized so much for so long that you can be self-autonomous, you can be self-sustaining, you don't really need anything else.
Yes.
You've got your entertainment,
Yeah.
you've got your job, you've got whatever it is, right? So the scriptures continually call us back to this need for community, for us to grow, but also for us to help others grow and to contribute. And also to contribute to our overall calling as human beings. We need to do it together. I have a textbook. It's a systematic theology textbook.
I love systematic theology.
And the title, surprisingly, is Created for Community. So the author felt that just that phrase, we're created for community, sums up community with God, community with our fellow humankind.
That's awesome. That's so good. And Pastor Jared, what has been your experiences with small group? Like for me, I grew up in India, and going to church was more of like going to a small group because we don't have big fancy churches up in the north. So I did value of like growing up together in smaller communities where we know who we are. And I'm not like suggesting we should have church as in the context of small groups, but that would be my personal experience. And I think there is a great joy in doing life together, in who we are, sharing meals together and doing a community life together. So, and that is awesome. But I would like to hear how has been your experiences. Yeah.
And it really does depend too, Ankit, like you mentioned, your experience in India, and the church size too matters, because a lot of churches even just coming on the weekend to worship, and there's just natural connections that flow out of that. In the church that I serve at currently, it's a larger church.
Yeah.
And so it is really easy for people to come to the weekend worship service and then go about their daily lives. They can come and go and no one knows they're there. So there's an element of it's possible to be invisible.
Yeah.
And so in my context, it is even more so important for people to take that step and to say, I want to meet others. I want to be in community. And it's this phrase, I'm not the one who originated it, but gathered and scattered. So it's this idea that when we gather on weekends to worship, to learn about God from his word, to be encouraged by that, again, that public space setting, right?
Yes.
But then during the week, we're going out and we're scattered in our different places. But when we're scattered, we're also coming together in smaller groups, right? So that's why our small groups, as I'm sure at many churches, meet during the week, in homes, in community, and they've got their ear to the street about how they can be serving and blessing others in their community context, not just where the public worship service gathering is.
Yes, that's right. And I want to pick on how you said that there are some natural connections that will happen in the bigger settings of the church, or even a middle-sized church. And I think this is where we need to be more careful. Like we can't impose, come have fellowship with me. Like again, if you back into the context of how John would say that, it's an invitation. I think we can invite people at the table. We can't impose on people for having fellowship. Fellowship is critical, and it does stems out when we are given in following God, and we are given in just loving God. And the result and the outcome of that fellowship would be that our hearts, mind, and spirit and body would crave for a community. But again, like Pastor Jared said, it has to be natural. We can't impose on people.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that parallels with my own experience, Ankit, because when I was in junior high school, I was just going to the weekend worship service. I had no Christian friends. I was just going on the weekends. And then there came a point in time after I graduated that I took a year and went to a discipleship program at a Bible college out of town. So it was just for a year. And, long story short, that there a lot went on that year that God was breaking me and changing me and instilling in me a calling to get on trajectory for his plan for my life.
Yes.
But one of the major things I learned that year was that I need community, because I was in that year, at that Bible college every day in community with others who were seeking God and growing too. None of us were perfect. None of us are perfect, but we're growing together. So as soon as I got back to Calgary, my hometown, I looked into our church, and there was a young adults group that was just starting. Yeah. One of the pastors was inviting, people who were early 20s into his home, him and his wife. And so I started going right away and brought a friend with me and started making friends. And it was in that community that I started to just really seek after God, really sense God in my life, really start to understand what the giftings were that he gave me, and started to have opportunity to serve in those giftings. I started to think less about myself and less about what God's calling in my life was.
Yes.
So stepping into that, and then just, being a volunteer leader in young adults for about a decade, that really helped me to see that, I think there's a calling here to help others to experience that. But like you said, no one was forcing me to say, you have to do this. It was something that I discovered was, this is what truly living is being in community.
That's awesome. So would you say that your first stage of like spiritual formation, you can just even rephrase what I'm trying to ask, would be from like you being given in the community? Would that be like the starting point for your personal spiritual formation, or was more like personal? Like growing up for me, I think my spiritual formation, like the first phase of my Christian life, it was more personal, like just being devoted into the scriptures because of a smaller settings and a different context where we don't have big like, churches or bigger groups. So it was just me alone spending time reading scriptures and praying. So for you, would it be like in the community?
I like how you phrase that, Ankit, that there are different phases.
Yeah.
And similarly, I think we might be having similar background in the sense that when we were children growing up in a Christian context, a lot of the foundations were laid. But like in everyone's journey, when you hit the late teens, early 20s, and your parents aren't like, get in the car, we're going to church, or else, you can't live here anymore, whatever it is. You have to decide for yourself, right? So I think for me, that shift that year and coming back to Calgary and joining community with other young adults, the foundations were laid, but that's when my faith really caught fire. That's when really things started to come alive for me, that God is wanting to befriend me, right? I had that strong sense God was befriending me, and he wanted me to come into the fellowship of others who were he was also working in their lives. He was inviting me into a family context, right? So a family that God is building. I mean, that's what he's doing right now, right, Ankit? I mean, he is building a family who will dwell with him forever.
Amen.
And so that's starting now with his invite into the people of God, into the church. That's these are local expressions of the family of God.
Yes.
So once I started to catch that vision, I just felt like there was no looking back. So it was that moment, stepping into community in my 20s, that things really got moving for me.
And I think I just loved how you said that your faith was on fire because of you being in the community. Yeah, that is so good.
Absolutely, and I think that's what it is, right? I mean, the Word of God and prayer and worship and being in nature. I mean, those connection points are going to look a little different for all of us. Yeah. But no one can do it alone. Like no one is a solo act when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to Christianity. And just like I said, going back to Jesus' example, if anyone could have done it alone, it would have been the eternal Son of God. Yeah. He could have come and done it by himself, but he said, no, James, John, Peter, come and follow me. Right. Yeah. And so he set that example for us.
And even like in that context, God doesn't impose salvation. We do have the understanding of imputed righteousness, not by works, but by faith alone. But still, he gives us the opportunity to say yes to him. And in the same way, when we have small groups or community groups, there are opportunities to get plugged into it. And I think they are awesome. And we should be intentional about that. And moving further, Pastor Jared, how would you help us to see if there were any movements in the past that you would think now would have kind of motivated you for small groups, like any historical understanding or anything that would just ignite you more, or even in our world today? Is there anything that you can think of?
I think there's some real commonalities. I mean, a person could do like a historical deep dive through, post-Reformation and John Wesley and just some of these individuals who saw that discipleship needs to happen in these smaller contexts.
Yes.
Like preaching, as powerful as it is, it to some degree, it's a one-way communication.
Yes.
And so that's why there needs to be preaching, but there needs to be conversation where we're sitting down with others. I love the phrase where someone said, life change doesn't happen in rows, it happens in circles.
Wow.
So again, I wouldn't say that as absolute as that, because I think life change does happen in rows too.
We can have encounters in the rows. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I like rows too.
Yeah.
Rows are good. Come to the rows. Everybody
Yeah.
needs a row to be sitting in, right?
Yeah.
But like I was mentioning, that you can really, your faith can take on another dimension when you're sitting across the table from someone. Like I've been getting to know people more even just within this past year who are in the recovery community, right? And are in AA meetings. And just seeing the life transformation that, again, comes from them stepping forward and saying, I need the help of others in my life. I think that's just a beautiful analogy for what we all need. And when we can get together, we get vulnerable, we get honest. So, just speaking about some of the common factors that I think we see in community for it to be most effective, and maybe this is, throughout history, but specifically too, we see it in the scriptures, we see application in our common time.
Yeah.
Our church has been working with an organization called 3DM. And so what 3DM does is originated in UK, and they've got leaders in the US. And then probably about 8 years or so ago, we as a church just started to have some input and influence from their leadership, and just really helpful about how we can interface as a church with our culture.
Wow.
And specifically when it comes to what we would say are missional communities. How can our communities who are in our neighborhoods, a small group of believers, how can they not just be coming together and kind of have that inward focus, but how can they be actively looking to love and bless others in just tangible ways and be God's presence in the midst of the neighborhood for the good of others? So I would just say in our church and with our leaders, we really like to focus on the three areas. One is the relationship with God. So within a small group, you're coming together around the scriptures.
Yes.
You've got a component of
so
worship,
yes.
right? You've got prayer. Like that is there. So that's what we would call up. Right?
You can't
Connecting
skip
with God.
prayer and reading scriptures in the small group.
That's the
please,
thing.
go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there's also the relationship though.
Yeah.
Right? There is authentic, vulnerable. You're getting to know each other's stories. You're getting to know what makes each other tick. You're developing friendships,
Yes.
right? So there's in that small group component, there's also not only the up, which we would say is relating with God, but it's the in, and that's developing relationship with other believers, with other Christians.
Right.
In addition to that, there's recognizing that there's many people in the world, many people around us that we can be blessing, we can be loving, and that's what we would call the out. And so that's looking for opportunities that God is putting right in front of us where we can help others in practical ways.
Totally.
You talk about loneliness. What would it look like to invite someone over? What would it look like to help someone in practical ways in, yard cleanup, or just helping out with food, or a local food bank? So those three components, we have found it's difficult to do all three well.
Yes.
Because we can get really good at, for example, up and in, where we're connecting with God and each other, but we lose sense of the calling that we have to bless others. We can get good at the in relationship component, and maybe we're really strong on some social justice issues, or feeding the poor, caring for the disenfranchised, but maybe we get a little disconnected from the source of the scriptures and prayer.
Yeah.
So how can we balance those three? That's what we talk about a lot at our church with our leaders.
Wow, that's I think that's really critical of like knowing how to start. Like it's scriptures, prayer, And like even in the past, historical understanding of small groups, like John Wesley and all, they would emphasize on holiness. And I think that should be something that we should work together in helping one another to walk in the likeness of Christ Jesus, put on Christ, and then be also intentional about the social settings and to help people, like you just mentioned, and to be intentional about how we can serve them and show them radical love. So we can just show them the message is love, and that would be quite helpful. Yeah. And how could we even raise like small group leaders? Like how should we be, or the church be more intentional in raising leaders? Like from my personal understanding, I think they need to have a good understanding of the scriptures, in alignment with the theological understanding of the church and their own personal belief. So we have that foundation so that whenever they lead people, there is a sense of understanding who they are and how they are going. And how would you help us in understanding that?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
There needs to be that foundation.
Yeah.
There needs to be that scriptural, theological alignment.
Yeah.
And once you have that, we kind of go by looking for the C's in people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's character.
Yes.
It's competency.
Mm.
It's chemistry.
Yeah.
It's calling. And there's another one that will probably come to me, but there's 5 that we kind of operate under. You start to look for those things, but then the other one is that we want to see a leader or developing leader be discipled too. We want to see them be apprenticed with a experienced leader. So we're always asking our current leaders, who in your group can you invite into to be an apprentice, to start giving responsibilities, to start helping them to say, how can you, maybe next time you can facilitate the discussion, or you can choose the worship song, or you can come up with some questions that we're going to look at, or you can do some administrative communication work, right?
Yeah.
So more and more we're going from the model of having kind of one main leader who's kind of the resident theological, expert and discussion leader, and that person is coming up with, the mission component of the group. Yeah. But more and more we're saying, who's your apprentice? Yeah. And also recognizing that leadership is all about finding and developing the gifts that are in the people, in the group, right? In the community group, in the small group. It's about finding those gifts and helping people operate in those gifts. So as opposed to the leader doing everything, how can the leader empower others? So, one of the helpful tools that we've been working with is the discipleship square, or the leadership square. Yeah. Again, it's not original to us, but it's the whole component of when you're calling someone alongside of you, you can, the first step is I do, you watch. Yes. The second one, I do, you help. Then it's you do, I help. Yeah. And then the fourth side of the square is you do, and I go on vacation. Okay. No. It's you do, and I watch, right? Yeah. But walking someone around the square is just a crucial part of knowing how do we apprentice people. Yes, that is so good. Yeah, and I think, like, I would love to be in a group where we can just pray. I think some people love to be hospitable. During Christmas, I know some small group leaders, they would open their homes, and you can just hang out in their homes and be there for the whole day, play with the kids, be with the family. So I think there are some great people. And then there has to be, like, ongoing training. And like you said, like, we have to find people within the group and probably empower them with their giftedness and their callings. I think that will really help to make that community, that particular small group, stronger. Yeah. And moving further, Pastor Jared, how could we, and this is something very personal, and I keep thinking about it, like, how could we stir up a movement, maybe in the city or anywhere in the world, like, where people just would get more intentional about the multiplication of small group, not just that, I know them for the last 10 years, we are very comfortable, we have peace, we have no conflicts, we enjoy, we are faithful to the scriptures, our theology is good, and everything is good. But I think there needs to be an add-on thing, and that is a heartbeat for missions, where we can advance things and see how can we help other people to multiply their small groups in their settings, in their context. And sometimes God will also lead us to individuals. And from there, we can have a new movement
like they might not be from a Christian faith, but from there can be a new movement among them for their community people, for their tribe. How could we frame that, and how could we possibly spread that as a small group movement? Yeah, to bless people, to bless the community, and to show them the love of God. Yeah.
I'll tell you a story, Ankit.
Yeah.
When I was
And take your time. You got plenty of time.
When I was fairly new in my community pastor role,
Yeah.
I went out to visit a group, and just a wonderful group of people. It was a Thanksgiving dinner, and they were kind of the retirement age, probably the 60s, 70s, et cetera. And I was just around the table chatting with them and just hearing more about the group. And then I realized that it was yes, a Thanksgiving dinner, but it was also a meeting of sorts. They were kind of making some decisions about how are they going to move forward as a group. And it was so interesting because as people were sharing, the common consensus that they came to was that we've done all the studies, we've looked through and studied all the books of the Bible.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for how many years together, how many even decades. Mm-hmm. And the conclusion was, as a small group, we've kind of done it all. We've kind of seen it all. From now on, let's just meet once a month and we'll have dessert together. Mm. And I just was observing that and thinking, every community has a life cycle.
Yeah.
Like every community, every church, that's also just a human component. There's a life cycle. So I'm not meaning to speak negatively. Maybe the life cycle of this community group was just kind of coming to an end. Mm-hmm. But speaking of movement, though,
yeah,
is that the way that it should be, where we've done all the studies, we've read through all the books, we've experienced it all, now it's time to just pack it in and have dessert? So I think that's a good contrast for what can we be looking for? How can we be making sure that, because I was looking around them and saying, like, what about your neighbors? Like, have your neighbors seen expression of the love and blessing of God, that His truth and grace? Yeah. Have they been invited in? Has there been interactions on that level, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing I would say, Ankit, I mean, movements come and go. Strategies come and go. And strategies are helpful because they help us to, again, interface with our moment, with our current moment. So I think we have to be cautious when there is a new strategy to recognize that the only silver bullet is the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
He's the only one who's going to help us move, and He's going to spark. Wow. So it's not something that we can create. We have to be sensitive to the Spirit. We have to be open to adapt. We have to be open to being pushed beyond our boundaries and comfort zones. Yeah. We have to be open to that. But strategies can be helpful because, like in our context, working with, like I said, 3DM before, it's given us some language. Yeah. It's given us some targets. It's given us some principles that we can operate in. And so I'll just say that we've developed what we call the 4 markers of missional community. And we call it missional community because exactly like you said, we don't want to lose that component.
Yes.
And sometimes, again, the phraseology, it gives us momentum in a certain direction.
Right.
Small group can start to feel like this is our small group.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We've got everybody we need in here. We're comfortable.
And that's fine, but
right?
gotta stir it up.
But what is the, what is that next step? So we would say, in the 4 markers that just try to keep us on path, keep us on track. Like if you go for a hike and you feel like you're kind of losing the path, you can look for, a ribbon tied in a branch of a tree or some sort of marker to say, this is the path we're supposed to stick to. So that's why we call them 4 markers. But the first one is, are we being a spiritual family? And so what that means is, are we looking at our time together, our gatherings in small group, as more of a class or more of a community relationship? So we like that term spiritual family because when Jesus came and someone said to him, his mother and brothers thought he was going a little crazy. Yeah. So they came to the house that he was teaching at, and someone said to him, your mother and brothers are outside. Yeah. And he said this profound question, who are my mother and brothers? And he redefined his family because he said, my mother and brothers are those who do the will of God. Yeah. Right? And so he kind of redefined family. So I think we need to also redefine spiritual family and recognize that it's not just based on biological lines or ethnic lines. The scriptures in the New Testament are very clear that we're to break down a lot of the barriers and boundaries that have previously walled us off from others. Right. And the church is meant to be this open place.
And it has to be done in the expression of love,
That's right.
not to come as militant to just oppress people or scare people or push them back.
Absolutely.
So that is so good. Yes.
Christ himself came to give himself away, give his life as a ransom for many, right? So he sets the tone for the loving, self-sacrificial approach. But that's the first marker. Are we a spiritual family? Or are we just here to download information?
Yeah.
Right? And grow intellectually? Are we a spiritual family?
Mm.
The second one is, are we operating in the up, in, and out?
Yes.
Scripture, relationship, and mission.
Wow.
The third one is, does our small group have an invitational culture? So culture is so important, right?
Yes.
We have a tendency as humans, once we get comfortable, we don't want anything to change.
Right.
We don't want to invite in that person who
Yeah.
maybe we have some differences, different background. Maybe they're struggling with different things that we've never faced before, right? Like addiction or whatever it may be. But is our culture such that, not necessarily that we're going door to door and handing out pamphlets,
Yeah.
but invitation is intentional. We're praying,
Right.
God, who are you putting in my life that you're calling me to invite in?
Yes.
Like there was a neighbor of ours who, he was always walking his dog, and we'd see him multiple times walking his dog around. And my kids noticed that wherever he was walking, he'd have his smartphone in his pocket, and there'd be voices.
Right.
So they were just saying, he's always on a phone call, it seems, right?
Yeah.
And so one day we were at the park, and he was walking over, and I said to my kids, let's just go meet this guy. We always see him. Let's go talk to him.
Yeah.
So got into a conversation with him, and he just lives down the street from us, works at home, so he has the opportunity to take his dog for multiple walks. But he mentioned that he's on a Discord group, an online kind of gaming community, and he just is on one of their audio communities and just always has voices playing. And so automatically in my mind, I'm going to, this man's hungering for community.
Yeah.
He's hungering for community. And we were having a group of men get together for a potluck just that next week. And so I just asked him about kind of his church experience. Had he ever, we were talking about how it seems like even in our neighborhoods, it's hard to trust people.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to have that sense of, do I even trust the person living next to me? And so I was just saying to him that the way that I have and build up trust for people is that I'm part of a church community where I get to know people and recognize that we can have those connections. We can build that trust. So I asked him about his church background, and he shared a little bit about that and didn't really have much and had some negative experiences. So I just thought, would you be interested in coming and hanging with a group of guys just as a potluck?
Yeah.
And he accepted.
Wow.
And he came and he met some people. So invitational culture is just always thinking in the back of our minds, who has God put in my life who would benefit from an invite just to come and meet some others?
Wow.
And then, so that's the third one. And then the last one is, do we have a missional purpose?
Yeah.
Is there a sense of something in our world that is broken, people who are hurting, the needs that are around us, and how can we as a community address that?
Yeah.
How can we step in, not to solve, there's a book, When Helping Hurts, right?
Yeah.
You can enable people in an unhealthy way, but what is our mission though?
Yeah.
What does that look like to serve and love and bless others? Not because we want to get something, not because we want to change someone, but just like you were saying, God comes to the world to give of himself. How can we do that as communities?
Yes, that is so good. Yeah, and I love how you said that the only silver bullet is God, the Holy Spirit. And I think we have to be sensitive how we get the promptings and build that relationships. And like you said, find a place where you can give them an invite and have them plugged in a community and not just be comfortable where we are. And it's a blessing to have comfort from the Lord, but at the same time, let us give back something to the Lord by reaching out to somebody like apostles did. They went to the north, east, west, and the south back in those days and years, and they made themselves very, very much uncomfortable to expand the gospel kingdom. And I think we have the same calling to do that, but we have the privilege of cars and all those airplanes and tickets and all those things. But the mission should carry on, and we should be intentional about expanding small groups and to be more intentional in the church and to respond back to the call of being a leader in the small group. And I think that is a big thing. And also be aware of what is happening in our city, the unreached young adults, maybe, right? So there are so many unreached young adults. We can just come out with some strategies and plans and understanding to just pull them in and to just have them plugged in. Yeah. Any comment on that, Pastor Jared? Yeah.
With young adults right now, talking about Gen Z.
Yeah.
My kids are Gen Alpha, so they're not quite teenagers yet. But there's an amazing opportunity. Even just culturally, societally, we used to be on that stream of thinking that science is going to solve everything for us.
Yes.
Technology. The focus was on, we don't really need God. We've got everything figured out in society.
Yeah.
There was the new atheism movement of the early 2000s that just said, we don't need religion. We don't need the transcendent. We have all that we need is right here in front of us. We just need to solve it. We need to figure it out. I really believe that societally we've come to the conclusion that that wasn't correct. Like that was on the wrong path towards fulfillment. And there is a deep need in human beings for the transcendent. There's a deep need for something deeper.
Yeah.
We can't find our calling and fulfillment just with the things that we see.
Yes.
As far as the physical world, the physical reality. So I think with young adults, especially again in the West, there is a real sense for, I need to find my calling. I need to find purpose in life. It's not just something we've been taught and we've been teaching our young people, and those of us millennials have kind of grown up, with the idea that we need to create that for ourselves.
Yeah.
Our purpose, like look within, it's within you. You just have to draw it out and present it to the world. But there's a book called You Are Not Your Own. And I can't remember the author offhand, but great book that just explores the burden that puts on young people when we say to young people, you figure out who you are, your identity, you figure out what your purpose is, and then let us know. Let us know when you find it out.
Yeah.
We need something from outside of ourselves telling us who we are.
Yes.
We need someone from outside of ourselves telling what our identity is, telling us what our purpose here is on earth. So that's the powerful thing about the Christian story is that we do have that outside person who's not only created all things, but he's come into our storyline. He's come into our humankind, has become part of us, part of our humankind family, so that we could become part of the divine family.
Yes.
And so there's something so powerful, and we start to see it. There's some surveys coming out about youth, even in UK, Europe, and here in North America. It seems like the dial's kind of turning back a little bit to people wanting to have a transcendent experience.
Yes.
And the church is here saying, we're ready to partner with you in that exploration and in that quest.
So good, yes.
But part of that quest isn't just coming and sitting in a row, as important as that is. It's also coming and sitting in a circle with others who are also on that quest, on that journey. And so there's an opportunity, a really huge opportunity right now.
So good. Well, thank you for giving us so much of depth about the small group and how you have expounded on so many things. And on this thing, I would just conclude by reading a verse from First Epistles of John, from verse 3, and that's it. John says, that which we have seen and heard, we declare to you, that you also may have fellowship with us. And truly our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. So John had that profound, tangible experience with Jesus, with God the Father, and the understanding of God the Holy Spirit. And he's proclaiming this to us now, that let's be consistent in finding that love in him. And he has come to us, like Pastor Jared said, and he has come to us in a very humble way, in a very loving way, and not in a destructive way. And he is inviting us into that deep relationship with him. And then with that understanding, we go on and we will find our communities and we will just proclaim the message of love. So thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. I hope you will have a wonderful week. Thank you.